How's it going, fam? Welcome back to Erica's EDC, and today we're talking about Pop's ProCut. I have some test updates for you guys. This is going to be like a podcast style video, so you can sit back, relax, grab a beer, grab a couple moms. Let's get into it. So, Pop's Knife Supply and Laren Thomas collabed to make a new carbon steel. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. There are two new steels hitting the market fairly soon that are in the works. We've got the Pop's ProCut, which is a carbon steel. We also have Magnamax, which is a stainless version of K390, essentially. I am also testing that. I will have an update video just like this one for the Magnamax on Thursday, I believe. But today we're going to talk about the ProCut. So this is supposed to be kind of the end-all be-all for carbon steels in the low alloy field. This is supposed to essentially be able to replace a lot of the low alloy simple carbon steels like 01, 1095, 52100, 80 CRV2, the blues. And I have said many times on the channel that the low alloy steels for me generally don't work super well because I am more edge retention oriented. That is just me personally, and just my use, okay? My knives I use to cut things, and I want them to act as a knife to cut for as long as humanly possible. That's just me. I used to be the complete opposite. You guys know I used to do the blue collar stuff. I would use my knives as pry bars and scraping tools and screwdrivers. I've been there, I've done it. Now I'm on the other side of things, and I want my knives to cut for as long as possible without having to intervene. So the low alloy steels for the most part have not really impressed me personally because they generally don't have the best edge retention, okay? They sometimes have really good toughness. If we look at 5160, 8670, they have, 8670 has like the craziest toughness ever. 80 CRV2 has decent toughness. You know, some of them are pretty dang tough, but they just don't hold an edge for a really long time, which means that if you want them to cut longer, you have to lay your edge back or, you know, opt for a thinner geometry as a whole, but you know, sometimes we don't have that option, right? We don't always get to work with custom makers and say, hey, can you grind it way thinner? Can you leave it like 10 thou BTE? So the low alloys just have never impressed me, and I've made that pretty apparent on the channel. I have a ton of experience with them. I have loads and loads and loads of videos on those steels. The Pop's ProCut is so actually mind-blowing. Number one, because it doesn't feel like a low alloy steel in terms of edge retention, but number two major things have happened during this testing that I caught on camera that are so insane I don't even actually know how they happened. So I recorded kind of an ASMR type video testing this the other day, and in that video I did two things that really should have broken the knife. Number one, I took this knife on camera and I stuck it into a 2x4 and I rocked it in until it was fairly deep in there. And what I wanted to do was test what would happen if this blade were to twist and have enough pressure on the tip of the knife where it could in theory snap. Okay, so on camera you watch me put the tip of the knife into the 2x4, rock it, it's really in there, and then I twist the knife back and forth like this. And the craziest thing happened that I've never seen in my life. The knife just bent with the movement. It just flexed. Now this is extremely thin, 0.064 for that stock thickness right there, and 8 thou BTE, okay? So it's extremely thin. I can, flex the knife like that. But the fact that I could put this into a piece of wood and twist the entire knife, and the steel is so forgiving that it just twisted with it, was crazy, especially because it's at 63 HRC and it's this thin, okay? That should have snapped it. At least the tip, right? The pressure should have snapped it. Nothing happened. I pulled it back out. It went to true. Then later on in the video, I tried filming this and it kind of just went south. I tried to baton with this through a piece of a bed frame and the knife instantly got stuck. And while I was trying to smash it through, I bent the tip. So I stopped the film. I turned it off. I didn't include that part because I was like kind of all over the place. And when I pulled the knife out, I was like, oh crap, like I bent the tip, right? So I didn't include that part. But what I did do was took it back out, tried to kind of straighten it out. And then I turned the camera back on and I showed that it was still pretty crooked. Like I had kind of gotten the kink out, but you could see it was still a little wonky. So on camera, I took a pair of little Nip-X pliers and straightened the tip out the rest of the way. Now again, this is what really should have snapped the tip of this blade, truly. So I take the pliers and I pulled it the opposite way on camera to try and straighten it back out. And what do you know? We got it nearly back to perfect. There is just the slightest little reflection, which I don't even know if the camera will pick up. You may be able to see at the very tip, just the slightest little reflection, but granted we have some teeners there, so it's hard to see. But you can see I got that thing nearly perfect again with pliers. This knife being this thin and this hard, again, that tip should have snapped. So those are two things that I've never done. I've never been able to take a knife this thin and twist it in a piece of wood and just have it like whoop, go with the flow, right? And then especially take pliers and it's straight to tip back up. I've snapped many knife tips trying to do dumb crap like that. Furthermore, I brought the knife inside, and because you can see that little reflection, I decided to take a mallet on the table and try to, hammer it back to straight. Another thing that could have cracked the grain. Nothing happened. You can see we still have a full whole knife. So what is this telling us? It's telling us a number of things. First of all, the grain structure of this low alloy is the finest I've ever experienced. Do we know exactly what it looks like yet? No. There is so much data that we still are collecting, waiting on, testing. These are all my subjective opinions and observations so far. But what it is supposed to be is ultrafine grain, and what it feels like in literal testing is ultrafine grain. You have to remember, when you have a fine microstructure, it provides even more toughness than just the composition and the numbers of the elements alone, okay? We like small, fine grain. This feels to have that. It also has very good corrosion resistance for being a low alloy carbon steel. On camera, I also cut up an apple with this. Then I kind of wiped it off real quick, put it in the sheath, and then I pull it out of the sheath on camera. And you can see that we've just built some patina. There's no pitting, there's no rusting, there's no sketchy stuff. So at the end, I'll try to remember to flip the camera around so we can really look at it. But you can see there's no rust or anything. It's just patina, okay? Another really impressive point. The most crucial, extremely impressive aspect of ProCut that I have experienced so far is the edge retention. This is where, for me, this is a game changer. This is locking me into this steel. This is something that I want everyone to experience. The edge retention on this is crazy. Now I'm going to tell you something that's really going to blow your mind, okay? I've tested tons and tons and tons of steel on the channel. I have tons of videos testing steel and reviewing steel. I looked back at my notes, and this actually has the same longevity of front end sharpness that CPM D2 does, thin and hard, but more importantly, CPM M4 at 5,000 BTE, 66.5 HRC. It is holding the same front end sharpness as that. That is actually mind-blowing. Now, if you aren't aware of what front end sharpness is, it's essentially, there are different types of steels, and some of them, when you start cutting things, they kind of immediately start to disintegrate and break down into what we call a working edge, which is still very sharp, but it's not as keen and sticky, okay? The front end sharpness is when you have a knife so sticky and sharp that it will, still pop hairs, it will still just like melt through material, okay? This arrived nasty, gross, sharp, okay? But the crazy thing is that I've done a bunch of testing with it. You even saw on camera. I mean, I was really kind of torquing this blade around in the wood and really hacking through it. And wood isn't necessarily abrasive, but when you're hacking, with especially such a thin knife, it will start to dull the edge. End of story. It is what it is. Batoning, not so much, because you're using kind of the geometry to split the wood, but when you're using the knife like this and pushing chunks out of a piece of wood and whittling and making sure that apex is grabbing the wood and moving it out of the way, that will dull the edge. Batoning and whittling and carving they're different things, okay? So although wood isn't necessarily as abrasive as cardboard, for instance, the tasks I was doing with the wood have dulled many edges of mine, okay? This thing is still so freaking sharp. You can probably hear it. It is so sticky. That's just me pressing my fingers on the edge. And I haven't stropped it. You can probably see I haven't even cleaned the dang thing. It's got all types of glue and residue and pine pitch and crap all over it, okay? This thing has such incredible front end sharpness. I've never experienced this from any low alloy in my life. It is that impressive. So the edge retention on this is probably, for me, tied with that flexibility, that toughness and strength. Those two things, the toughness and the strength, just the flexibility of the whole blade, are blowing my mind. But on top of that, having edge retention like this, the level of CPM M4 so far is just insane. And to be honest, I've never really even had low alloy steels get to this level of front end sharpness to begin with, basically ever. I think I have one knife from the Scrawny Lumberjack. He made me a little splinter in 1095 for that head-to-head testing we did last year, and it's 5 thou BTE, 62 HRC, 332nd stock, crazy ridiculous thing. That one knife in 1095 had really sticky, incredible front end sharpness. But aside from that, I've just never had 80 CRV2 or 01 or 8670 or anything come even close to the level of nasty, toothy sharp that this has. Truly, I haven't. So this, when they said that this could, in theory, replace nearly all common low alloy steels, I wasn't skeptical. I was surprised, because I've just never heard of all of these characteristics put together. I've never really experienced this level of nickel tied in with the tungsten, tied in with the everything all together. We have 2% nickel. The tungsten is really surprising. I think it's 1.23, maybe 1.25. I'll have to look back at my notes. I've never seen a composition tied together like this, and I've never experienced a low alloy steel this impressive, ever. It's performing like a super steel. It has edge retention it has front end sharpness and edge retention so far like a super steel. This is everything I've always wanted from the low alloy class, honestly. And it's not to crap on all of the low alloy steels. It's not to say that makers that still want to use them or do use them, it's not to crap on them either. It's not. This is literally my personal subjective opinions. And when you want a knife to cut for a long time, edge retention matters, okay? We can mitigate kind of to a point strength and toughness and edge stability and stuff with geometry, you know, to a point, right? You can't change the composition, but you can really toy around to play with toughness and strength and such, okay? And edge stability. Edge retention, of course you can lay an edge back to 15 degrees per side. Of course you can have a nice thin grind, okay? But we do all know that fine grain structure helps, that carbide volume helps, that the types of carbides helps, right? Just like in the Magnamax, we have 17% carbide volume of vanadium and niobium carbides. They're very hard. They're very small. The Magnamax is cutting for eternity and doesn't need a dang thing from me. It just wants me to fuck off. I've never experienced that in a low alloy, okay? And again, we don't know what the carbide volume is yet. We don't know what it actually looks like yet. We're working on it. But this is blowing my mind. And if you're a maker that likes low alloy steels, if you like carbon steels, and you've been on the fence about trying ProCut, this is your push to just get it. Don't even think about it. Just get it. Make a knife. You're not going to regret it, seriously. And that's coming from someone who my entire channel essentially have been like, I'm not impressed with low alloy steels. Like, they haven't been my jam. They just don't cut for long enough for me personally. So I'm just shocked. I'm absolutely shocked at the performance of this. Dusty did an incredible job. I will flip the camera around as I say goodbye here so you can just kind of get a look at what the patina looks like from just straight up general use in my life. I'm not doing any forced stuff. I'm not sticking this in a lemon or putting lemon juice on the blade. This is all patina from just my normal everyday use. So we'll look at that, but I'll close out by saying this is a home run. This is something very special. I've never experienced like a super carbon steel before, and this is the one. It is. So really grateful for everyone over at Pops for having a hand in this. Super grateful to Dusty for making this. We are obviously learning more and more as the weeks go on, but man, this is a home run. So check out Pops ProCut. Go use your shit. Learn how to sharpen your knives. I'll see you guys on the next video. I love you so much. Take care. Got ProCut.